By the way, I got to tell you, I feel a little out of place. Had the nice lady who was the head of Amnesty International. We had a New York Times former reporter, Pulitzer Prize nominated. Then that nice gentleman who had apparently was at Harvard when Mark Zuckerberg put Facebook together. And now a comedian who tells jokes about male pattern baldness. I'm not sure. I feel a bit like a human non sequitur. But be that as it may. Friedrich Nietzsche said, what is a life of means without meaning? In other words, what is a life where you're making a living but you're not making a difference? I knew exactly what I wanted to do for a living almost from birth. I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. I did not decide how I was going to do that and make a difference until I was 52 years old. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I do believe that comedians are born not made. Let's see what the next slide is. Yeah, there I am. I do believe comedians are born not made. Now, don't get me wrong. I could teach you to write stand-up and perform stand-up comedy. But I believe that is the end product. It's the process. It's what goes on up here. It's the sense of humor I inherited from my mother, Dixie, that I believe is innate. Comedians hear and see the same thing everybody else hears and sees. We just process it differently. For example, not long ago, actually last year, I was on a Delta flight going somewhere, and we're getting ready for takeoff. We haven't taxied out yet, but we're about to. And the FAA had just changed some regulations. They said if you have an iPhone or an iPad, you can use that on takeoff or landing if it is in the airplane mode, correct. Well, the problem for the flight attendant is that's not written down anywhere. It's a brand new rule. You know, they could do the pre-flight safety thing that they've been doing in their sleep. But this, they're going to have to, pardon the pun, wing it. So, as a comedian, I'm sensing there may be comedy ensuing. So, have you flown Delta? The flight attendants are very southern. So she comes on, she talks about the drop from the overhead compartment, oxygen mask, and the seat cushion, and the floor path lighting. And then there's this long pause. And I know she's pausing because she's got to tell us about this new rule, so I'm on the edge of my seat. Okay, so she comes back on the microphone and she goes, ladies and gentlemen, in preparation for landing, due to a new FAA regulation, long pause. You can almost hear the gears in her head grinding. She comes back on, she goes, here on taxi and takeoff, if you have small equipment, you can continue playing with it. I'm bent over double laughing, nobody else in the plane. My seatmate's looking at me like I've lost my mind. He goes, what? I go, let's review. Before I can review, she comes back on the microphone and goes, if you have large equipment, you're going to have to shove that under the seat in front of you. So I'm down on my knees, and I told my first joke in 4th grade. Those are my glasses from 4th grade. Do you recognize the brand? They're Ray-Bans, which nowadays are very hip. But in 1962, not so much. That was the only choice for guys in 62. For women, they had those cat-eye glasses, a couple of colors, but that was it. Yeah, and I hated wearing them. I just, my mother dressed me, so I had a knit shirt, polyester pants, hush puppies. You add the Ray-Bans, that's pretty much head-to-toe birth control. A woman is not going to get anywhere near you dressed like that. So, but I mean, I am terribly nearsighted. My entire family, I thought if we ever did Ancestry.com, it would come back that we were all descended from a tribe of people that lived on the island of Myopia. Which, by the way, was conquered over and over because the native population never saw the enemy coming. My teacher, Ms. Dark, as my mother would say, in her infinite wisdom, decided the best thing to do was desensitize the entire class to my glasses. So she had me come to the front of the room, face away from the class, put on my glasses, turn back to the class. She peers down, she goes, see, you look intelligent. This is the first joke I ever told. It was an ad lib. I said, yes, that would explain all the laughter. She excused herself to go to the teacher's lounge, coughing as she went. Years later, I saw her in the Winn-Dixie grocery store. She goes, Frank, do you have any idea why I went to the teacher's lounge? I go, I have no idea. She goes, because that was the funniest thing a child's ever said to me. I was afraid if I laughed in your face, you'd just be crushed. I would crush your spirit. So, 4th grade, when I was in 4th grade, 1962, thank God there was no Ritalin. No. Because if there had been, being the class clown, they would have drugged me into a stupor. I would have spent the entire day face down on my desk, passed out in a pool of my own saliva. Thank the Lord they didn't have that. They didn't have this either, by the way. STEM. Are you familiar with STEM? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Yeah, I could do all these things, but if that had been the curriculum when I was in school, I would have wished I was face down on my desk, passed out in a pool of my own saliva. Yeah, because I'm this kind of guy. Science, technology, engineering, math, arts, humanities. That's me. That I can. Do you guys know? I have a couple little dirty little secrets about STEM. Do you know this? They test all of the 15-year-olds in the world once a year on those 4 competencies. And then they compare test scores country to country. And the United States, everybody's all upset. We always finish like 26, 27 out of 37 industrialized nations. So they instituted this STEM curriculum. Well, here's a dirty little secret. The countries that beat us year in and year out don't use the STEM curriculum. Yeah. You know what they do to get higher test scores? This is crazy. They train their teachers better, and they pay them better. The average starting salary in those countries for a teacher is the same as the average starting salary for an engineer. Yeah. And they get better results. Go figure. So I know. But I'm an arts and humanities guy, so I'm a little bit prejudiced. Those are the secrets I was going to show you. This is what we had when I was a kid. Not STEM, we had SESMA. It was science, English, social studies, math, arts, humanities. It's a darn good thing we had arts because when I got to high school, I took 3 years of drama. No arts, no drama. Took 3 years of drama, and that's why I'm a comedian today. That's why I'm the mental health comedian today. Not because I was good at drama, ironically, because my teacher, Miss Paulette Dyson, thought I was horrible at drama. Well, it's her job to cast all the productions, and I auditioned for every play for 3 years. No speaking parts. Yeah, by the spring of my senior year, I'm thinking, I believe there's a pattern here. So you know what I did? I thought to myself, if I do stand-up comedy, I could write, direct, star, and produce my own little production every night. I'll show them, so I did. That's me. Senior talent show, Broughton Senior High School, Raleigh, North Carolina. First person ever to do stand-up on that stage at the talent show. Now, what I don't know is why I'm dressed like a manager from IHOP. But as my mama would say, be that as it may, I won. So I ran home, told my mama, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. And my mother, who smoked 3 packs a day, said, no, son, you're going to college first. After college, when you graduate, you can be a goat herder for all I care. But let me tell you something, you're going to be a goat herder with a degree. Which I went to UNC Chapel Hill, got a liberal arts degree, didn't hurt me none. Married my high school sweetheart, big mistake. Yeah, well, she's a wonderful woman. We just had nothing in common. But you know what they say? I'm sure you guys heard this. Opposites attract. Yep, she was pregnant. I wasn't. She wanted me to go in the insurance business, which I was just thrilled to do, but I did. And it turned out to be a good break because I went into the business in Raleigh, North Carolina, my old hometown. They transferred me almost immediately to San Diego, California, where they have a comedy store to this day. Beginning of the end of my insurance career. Because once I set foot on stage at the comedy store, I heard a voice in my head say, I'm home. Yep. And the audience, I did 5 minutes and it rocked it. My first time. Well, it was 5 minutes I'd written about moving from North Carolina to California. You know, fish out of water kind of a thing, culture shock. My favorite bit, the one I closed with, was this. I'd never seen guacamole. Hell, I grew up in North Carolina. I'd never even seen an avocado. So I'm at a cocktail party. I pick up a chip. I'm headed for the bowl. I look down just in time to see what appears to be a large supply of green spackle. So I'm hovering, and the hostess comes over and goes, oh, Frank, you're from North Carolina, right? Oh, I bet you've never seen that. That's guacamole. It's good. I said, yeah, but it was the first time somebody ate it. Audience laughed, never looked back. That was April of 1983. By December 1984, I had won the funniest person in San Diego contest at Improv, and I had 10 weeks of comedy booked on the road. And let's see. Yep, that's me when I won the contest. Had 10 weeks of comedy booked on the road, and I said to my girlfriend, now my wife, and yes, she's way too good looking for me, I know that. I said to Wendy, I'm going on the road to be a stand-up comedian professionally. You want to come along? And inexplicably, she said yes. So we gave up our jobs, put everything in storage. We couldn't fit into my, wait for it, Dodge Colt, and hit the road. We hold the record, she and I, for the longest nonstop comedy club road trip ever. 2,629 nights in a row, nonstop. Yep, comedy club to comedy club, hotel to hotel, worked with some amazing people. Wrote for Jay Leno for 20 years. Extremely nice guy. I opened up for Kevin James, yes, and Adam Sandler. Opened up for Adam Sandler at Duke. Man, that was a nightmare. Well, picture this. Ladies and gentlemen, one night only from Saturday Night Live, Adam Sandler. But before that, a guy you don't know telling jokes. You suck! Get off the stage! 30 minutes of that. Ellen DeGeneres, opened for her in San Diego. Jeff Foxworthy, Larry the Cable Guy. That's funny, I don't care who you are. Seinfeld, worked with him and Charlie Goodnight in Raleigh before he was Jerry Seinfeld. Jim Carrey, he used to do just impressions. You guys know that? Strictly impressions before doing stand-up comedy and then, of course, acting after that. Jon Stewart, also worked with him at Charlie Goodnight in Raleigh. Robin Williams, I know, I'm sad to say. I do believe he battled bipolar, and that's why he's no longer with us today. The reason I came off the road was I went to work at a radio station in Raleigh, North Carolina in 1993. They wanted me to co-host a morning show on a rock station, so I took the job. Part of the job was being an MC and host at the Charlie Goodnight's Comedy Club in Raleigh. And there were 3 comics who were starting right then, who have gone on to much bigger and better things. You may not recognize this guy. His name is John Reep. He was a Hemi guy. He was in Rodney's short-lived sitcom. I bet you recognize her. That's Retta Surley from Parks and Rec. And she's now in this new show called Good Girls, where she's co-starring. She's done very well. And I'm almost certain you recognize this guy. Dr. Ken! Yeah, I was in Raleigh. He was going to Duke Medical School in the daytime and hanging out at the comedy club at night. So, yep. So my job at the radio station lasted April 93 to July 94. And I got fired. Because there's 2 kinds of people in radio. People who have been fired, people who are going to be fired. Just the nature of the beast. And my plan had always been to go back on the road and do stand-up in clubs, but the problem was the club scene was fading. The good news was I am relatively clean when it comes to comedy, so I can make the shift from the bar room to the boardroom, from club comedy to corporate comedy. The best news is I discovered that corporate comedy pays a whole lot better. Yeah, you can make as much in one night on a corporate gig when I started in corporate that I can make in a week at a comedy club. Well, because the meeting planners, they're not so concerned that you are funny. They just want to make sure you're clean and don't offend anybody. And they're willing to pay a lot of money for it. So by the time my corporate comedy career came to an end, peaked, right before the recession, foreshadowing, I was making 3 times what I would make in a week at a comedy club doing corporate comedy. Let's see what the next slide is. Oh, also opened up for Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan Chase. But that's another story for another TED Talk. Yeah, great guy, and a great sense of humor, by the way. So corporate comedy was going really well until the recession. Then the bottom dropped out of the stock market, the bottom dropped out of the corporate comedy market, and my income fell 80% overnight. My wife and I lost everything. We'd worked for 25 years in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and I was depressed and suicidal. And I didn't tell you this, but I inherited 3 things from my mother. I inherited a sense of humor, the cholesterol of the average deep fat fryer, and something called generational depression and suicide. Yeah, my grandmother died by suicide, my great aunt died by suicide, and I came very close in 2010 to taking my own life. Well, I've been depressed off and on all my life, and I've been depressed at some of the best times in my life, and I always worried, what's going to happen if I'm depressed at the worst time in my life? And I found out. I had an itch on the roof of my mouth I could only scratch with the front sight on my nickel-plated .38. Yeah, spoiler alert, didn't pull the trigger. Yeah, I've got a friend of mine here named Glenn Friesman who came to see me as another speaker. When I said that, he heard me say that, and he goes, how come you didn't pull the trigger? I said, Glenn, could you try to sound a little less disappointed? Is that... Well, I have 2 mental illnesses my mom gave me. One's called major depressive disorder, depression. The other one's called chronic suicidality, which means, for me, the option of suicide is always on the menu for problems large and small. I'll give you an example. Last year, my car broke down. I had 3 thoughts unbidden. Get it fixed, buy a new one, or I could just kill myself. That is chronic suicidality. And I'll bet you there's somebody in this room right now who just heard me say that, who thought they were the only person on the planet who thought that way. And they'll probably come up to me after the show and go, man, I thought it was just me. No, there's a name for it, and there's lots of us. So, good news is, of course, I didn't pull the trigger. Best news was, at 52 years old, I finally realized I have a way to do, perform and make a difference. Because every year in the United States, 44,000 people die by suicide. Now, the good news is, you can do something about that, and you can make a difference, you can save a life, and you can do it by doing something as simple as starting a conversation. Let me make sure I got that's Judy's book. Yeah. Hang on. Yeah. This, by the way, is Judy Carter's book. It's called The Message of You, Turning Your Life into a Money-Making Speaking Career. Yeah, it was Judy's book that made me realize that my depression, major depressive disorder, and chronic suicidality was something that people would want to hear about. Messes and stresses is what people want to hear about, and then how you overcame it. So I have to thank Judy for that. You can do something about it. You can make a difference. You can save a life, and you can do it by doing something as simple as starting a conversation. You can do it in person. You can do it on the phone. You can do it on Facebook. And I'll let my new BFF, Renee LaBoa, tell you about that.
Hey, Frank. I didn't tell you that you were the reason I decided to stick around. There you were, putting a face to what I was feeling. I no longer felt alone and unseen. It was your Facebook post on suicide. I felt hopeful for the first time in 2 years. You gave me the courage to stay and not just survive, but to dream again. Now that I've watched your TED Talk, I know that there are no accidents. We were meant to meet. And I am grateful that you not only saved my life with your posts, but you are now my mentor. I bet you didn't know you signed on for that. You have my never-ending respect for the work that you are doing to bring awareness and understanding to our disease. By the way, you made me cry. Big love, and thank you.
The question always comes up, how do you start the conversation? And I do it every week. Earlier this week, I spoke at Kansas Wesleyan University on college suicide prevention. The reason is, every year in this country, 24,000 college students attempt suicide. That stadium holds 24,000 people, to give you an idea of what 24,000 people looks like. 1,100 in their lives. That's 3 a day, every day. Again, you can do something about that. You can save a life. You can make a difference. And you can do it by something as simple as starting a conversation. Now, the question always comes up, how do you start the conversation? Well, here's the good news. I've discovered that the mere mention of the words depression and suicide out loud elicits the most amazing responses from people, some of whom I've just met. I do comedy on cruise ships. This is the Prince and Dam. And I was in the Lido buffet one morning, couldn't find a place to sit. Look over, there's a woman at a table for two, empty chair. I nod, she points, I sit. So I sit down, she looks up, she goes, "Hey, are you the comedian?" I said, "Hey, did you enjoy the comedy show?" She goes, "Yes, I did." I said, "Then I'm the comedian." She goes, "What would you have said if I told you I hated the show?" "I'm a plumber from Des Moines." She goes, "Is cruise comedy all you do?" I said, "No, I'm a public speaker. I just nailed down a TED Talk." She goes, "I love the TED Talk. What's stopping?" I knew what was coming. I said to her, "Depression and suicide," and started a countdown in my head. 3, 2, 1. She says, "I tried to kill myself twice." We just met. Yeah, she goes, "First time in college, not that serious. Second time, far more serious." I had graduated college. I had graduated medical school. I had the knowledge, had the equipment. She said, "I had the IV started in my ankle. Had the suicide cocktail in one hand, the syringe in the other, getting ready to load it up. Phone rings. Do I pick it up? She picks it up, her 13-year-old son. She goes, "I don't know if he had a premonition or heard something in my voice, but he said, 'Mom, don't do anything.'" So she didn't. She did not give up on the idea of suicide. She decided not to do it that day because she was worried that he would realize he spoke to her right before she did, would always feel guilty. Wasn't there something he could have said or done to stop her from suicide? Well, the good news is, because 8 out of 10 people are ambivalent who are contemplating suicide, there are things you can say, there are things you can do. We'll cover those. It's called Mental Health First Aid. You go to mentalhealthfirstaid.org. There are classes all over the place. It's like $20, 8-hour class. They throw in pizza, and you learn about depression, suicide, non-lethal self-harm, so forth and so on. But let me give you your first lesson today. Because people ask me, how do you know if somebody's depressed? Okay, here's some signs. Eats too much, can't eat. Sleeps too much, can't sleep. Has difficulty getting up in the morning to get to a morning class or to work. Rallies in the afternoon. lets their personal hygiene go. Then the question comes up, what do you say? Let's talk about what you don't say to somebody you believe is depressed. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Turn that frown upside down. Everybody gets depressed now and then. Have you tried fish oil? Honest to God, I've heard that. Here's what you do say if you believe they're depressed. I am here for you and mean it. I know that you are not lazy, crazy, or self-absorbed. I know that depression is a mental illness. Here's the good news. With time and treatment, things will get better. I will take the time and mean it. I will help you get the treatment and mean it. And here's the tough one. This is the one everybody stumbles over, myself included. You need to ask them, are you having thoughts of suicide? There's a school of thought you should never mention the S word, suicide, in front of somebody who's depressed. And as a comedian, I love the reasoning. It might give them the idea. Suicide? What a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? Trust me, it's crossed their mind. Let's talk about suicide. How do you know somebody is suicidal? Well, they talk a great deal about death or dying. They Google death or dying. It appears as a theme in their artwork or their writing. They give away their prized possessions because they want to make sure when they're gone, those possessions go to the people they want them to go to. They're collecting the means to die by suicide, whether it's buying a gun or stockpiling medications. And here's a counterintuitive one, and this is really dangerous. They're depressed, and then all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, happy. Probably have chosen time, place, method. They know the pain they're in is finite. And that, by the way, with suicide is the issue. People say to me, I can't believe he or she wanted to die. Chances are they did not want to die. I did not want to die. I just wanted to end the pain. So, what do you say to somebody who you believe is suicidal? Here's what you don't say. You're just looking for attention. You're being melodramatic. Nobody who talks about it ever does it. Here's what you do say. Do you have a plan? If they have a plan, what is your plan? If they're depressed and suicidal and having thoughts of suicide, have a plan and it's detailed, do not leave them alone. If you have to go, try to find somebody to take your place. Your job as a mental health first responder is to get them on the phone with the Suicide Prevention Lifeline or texting. Text the word HI, H-I, to 741-741. If they will not pick up the phone and call the Suicide Prevention Hotline or Lifeline, you pick up the phone, call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The volunteer will do their best to talk the phone into the hand of the person who is in crisis. Now the question comes up, when do you call the cops? If they're a danger to themselves, immediate danger to themselves, or others, you have to call the police. Again, 2 out of 10 people who are having thoughts of suicide are bound to determine we can't save everybody, they're going to die. The good news is 8 out of 10 people who are contemplating suicide, you can do something about that. You can make a difference. You can save a life, and you can do it by doing something as simple as what we're doing right here, and that's starting a conversation.